The story takes place in a small rural farming town in Iowa called Ogden Marsh, where life is usually quiet and predictable. The town sheriff David Dutton is known and trusted by almost everyone, and he works closely with the local doctor, his wife Judy Dutton, who treats many of the townspeople. Everything seems normal at first: baseball games, friendly neighbors, and the everyday rhythm of a close-knit community. However, something strange begins to happen when a local man named Rory Hamill, who had previously struggled with alcoholism but had supposedly recovered, suddenly disrupts a school baseball game while visibly unstable and armed with a shotgun. Sheriff David is forced to intervene when Rory refuses to stand down, resulting in a tragic shooting that shocks the entire town. Although David believes Rory was intoxicated again, the medical examiner later reveals something disturbing: there was no alcohol in Rory's system at all. This immediately raises suspicion that something else is affecting people in town. Soon after, more unusual and violent incidents begin to occur. Judy notices that one of her patients, Bill, is behaving strangely and his condition deteriorates rapidly. At the same time, she becomes concerned about her husband's mental and physical state when he appears confused and emotionally unstable. Bill's condition worsens into something far more dangerous, and Judy is forced into a terrifying situation involving her own family when her home becomes unsafe. The situation escalates quickly as Bill's behavior turns lethal and the sense of normalcy in the town completely breaks down. Sheriff David begins to realize that these are not isolated incidents but part of a growing pattern affecting multiple residents. As more deaths occur under bizarre circumstances, David and Judy try to make sense of what is happening. The bodies of affected individuals show similar symptoms, including bleeding and violent behavior before death. Meanwhile, the town government and emergency services struggle to control the situation. A mysterious crash is reported in a nearby swamp-like area called Hoffman Bog, and investigators begin to suspect that something unnatural or hazardous may have entered the environment, possibly contaminating the water supply. When David connects the dots, he realizes that the town's drinking water system could be the source of infection, spreading whatever is affecting people. However, shutting down the water would devastate the farming community, destroying crops and livelihoods, so officials hesitate to take drastic action. As the outbreak spreads, the situation becomes more severe. The military arrives without clear explanation and begins taking control of the town. Residents are forced into evacuation procedures under strict supervision, with many being separated from loved ones. The authorities claim it is for containment and testing, but their methods are harsh and secretive. People are placed into quarantine tents and buses, and those showing symptoms are taken away. Fear spreads rapidly as townspeople realize they are no longer in control of their own community. David and Judy are separated from many of their neighbors and struggle to understand what is truly happening while also trying to stay together and protect themselves. It is revealed that the government is treating the situation as a biological outbreak of unknown origin. Military personnel enforce strict protocols, including forced relocations and lethal force when necessary. However, confusion and panic among the troops lead to further chaos, and the town begins to collapse into disorder. Some soldiers are unclear about their mission, and rumors spread that the entire operation is based on secrecy and containment of something far more dangerous than initially admitted. Meanwhile, David refuses to abandon the town and tries to rescue Judy, who has been taken into the quarantine system due to her exposure and pregnancy, which raises concerns about infection risk. As David and a small group of survivors attempt to escape or navigate through the chaos, they encounter multiple dangerous situations involving both infected townspeople and military forces. The infected individuals exhibit extreme aggression and loss of control, often behaving unpredictably and violently. These people are not simply sick in a traditional sense; they seem to be psychologically altered, driven into a state of paranoia and aggression that makes them dangerous to everyone around them. The military response becomes increasingly severe, with roadblocks, forced containment zones, and even executions of civilians who attempt to flee. David, along with his deputy Russell and a few others, continues to search for Judy while trying to avoid both infected residents and military capture. Along the way, they discover that communication has broken down completely and no one outside the town is providing clear answers. The sense of isolation deepens as they realize the entire region has likely been sealed off. Trust between survivors becomes fragile as fear of infection leads people to suspect even their closest friends and family. At times, individuals who appear healthy suddenly turn violent, reinforcing the idea that the infection can manifest unpredictably. Eventually, David and Russell manage to reach areas where evacuation buses are gathering survivors. However, these evacuation points are not safe havens but controlled processing centers where people are screened, separated, and in some cases forcibly taken away. Judy and other medical staff are involved in trying to identify symptoms, but the process is overwhelmed and chaotic. David's main goal becomes reuniting with Judy and escaping the containment zone before the military either eliminates all remaining residents or transports them to unknown facilities. As the group moves through abandoned farms and back roads, tensions rise. Some survivors begin to suspect that military orders are not fully transparent and that they may be part of an experiment or cover-up rather than a rescue operation. Conflicts break out between soldiers and civilians, and the situation deteriorates into open conflict in some areas. The infected population continues to grow, and there is no clear understanding of whether the condition is airborne, waterborne, or transmitted through contact, adding to the paranoia. David eventually learns that the infection likely originated from a crashed military aircraft that carried a biological agent into the local environment. This explains why the outbreak began suddenly and why it is spreading in unpredictable ways. The town's water system and environment have been contaminated, and containment has escalated into a full military quarantine. However, the official response prioritizes secrecy and control over evacuation or cure, leaving residents trapped between infection and enforcement. As they move through abandoned roads and farmland, tensions within the group rise. The emotional weight of the destruction is overwhelming, especially for David and Judy, who realize that their home, their friends, and possibly most of the town's population are gone. Judy struggles with the idea that everything they knew has been destroyed permanently, while David refuses to accept that survival is impossible. Their relationship becomes strained as grief and fear mix with determination. At the same time, Russell the deputy becomes increasingly blunt and cynical, accepting that he is likely going to die and deciding to sacrifice himself if it means David and Judy have a chance to escape. They eventually encounter a surviving military unit and manage to interrogate a captured soldier. Through this confrontation they learn the truth behind the disaster. A biological weapon known as Trixie, a Raptiviridae prototype virus, was being transported by the military but crashed near the town. The virus was designed as a weapon intended to destabilize populations through infection, turning ordinary people into violent, irrational versions of themselves. It was originally meant to be controlled and eventually destroyed, but after the crash it leaked into the environment and began spreading through water and possibly air exposure. The incubation period is extremely short and those infected either die quickly or become uncontrollable and dangerous. This revelation confirms that the outbreak was not a natural disaster but a government-created weapon that accidentally contaminated the entire region. The soldier also admits that the military response is not rescue-based but elimination-based. The goal is to contain the virus by destroying everything inside the perimeter, including civilians, infected or not. This shocking truth leaves David furious, realizing that the people of Ogden Marsh were never given a chance to survive. Despite the danger, Russell insists on continuing the escape plan. He understands that he is already exposed and likely infected but chooses to act as a distraction so David and Judy can escape. He reminds David that as sheriff he must make hard choices, and in this case letting Russell sacrifice himself is the only chance they have. Russell prepares to confront the military checkpoint alone, walking directly into the perimeter with his hands raised, identifying himself as a deputy and drawing attention away from the others. His goal is to allow David and Judy to slip through unnoticed while he buys them time. Russell approaches the soldiers at the perimeter, and despite his attempt to surrender peacefully, the situation becomes deadly. The military issues strict warnings, treating him as a contaminated individual. Even though he tries to identify himself and communicate, the soldiers are ordered to maintain a live-fire stance. In a tragic moment, Russell is shot and killed after being deemed a threat, his sacrifice allowing the others a brief opportunity to move forward. His death highlights the brutality of the containment operation and the complete breakdown of trust between civilians and the military. Meanwhile, David and Judy continue toward their final chance of escape. Exhausted, injured, and emotionally drained, they push forward through destroyed farmland and abandoned structures, trying to reach a truck stop where they believe they might find transportation out of the quarantine zone. However, they continue to face obstacles, including military patrols and the constant fear of infection. Judy remains emotionally shaken, unable to accept that the town and its people have been wiped out, while David tries to maintain focus on survival. At one point, they find a usable vehicle, but it has been disabled by military sabotage, forcing them to continue on foot or find another option. As they move closer to the highway system leading towards Cedar Rapids, the military prepares a final containment protocol. Radio transmissions indicate a countdown sequence that signals the final phase of the operation. This suggests that once the countdown reaches 0, a large-scale action, likely destruction of the entire area, will be triggered to eliminate any remaining trace of the outbreak. Panic increases as David and Judy realize they are running out of time. During their escape attempt, they are forced into multiple close calls, hiding from patrols and navigating through burning or abandoned infrastructure. The situation becomes increasingly chaotic, with explosions occurring in the distance and reports of fires spreading across key facilities, including chemical plants and fuel stations. These explosions are likely part of the containment strategy designed to ensure that nothing infected or contaminated survives. Despite the chaos, David manages to locate another vehicle, and with Judy they attempt one final escape route. The emotional strain between them reaches its peak as Judy expresses despair over the destruction, while David insists that survival is still possible. He refuses to accept that everything is lost and pushes forward with determination even as danger closes in around them. Their bond becomes the only stable element in a collapsing world. As they drive toward the edge of the containment zone, military communications confirm that the final sequence is about to begin. The countdown reaches its final seconds, indicating that the destruction of Ogden Marsh and surrounding areas is imminent. The tension peaks as explosions begin to erupt in the distance, confirming that the military is actively burning and destroying infected zones to prevent further spread of the virus. David and Judy narrowly escape the immediate blast radius, continuing down the road as the town behind them is consumed by fire and smoke. The once peaceful rural community is now completely transformed into a disaster zone, with massive fires, collapsing buildings, and military operations erasing any remaining evidence of life inside the quarantine area. News reports outside the zone describe large explosions, fires at chemical plants, and ongoing attempts to control the situation, though it is clear that the situation is far beyond containment. In the final moments, David and Judy survive the immediate destruction, but the world they knew is gone. Ogden Marsh has been wiped out not only by the virus but by the military response designed to erase it. The truth of the situation remains hidden from the wider public, with official reports framing the disaster as industrial accidents and chemical explosions rather than a failed biological weapon experiment. David and Judy are left alive but deeply changed, carrying the trauma of what happened and the knowledge that an entire town was sacrificed. The story ends on a grim and uncertain note, with survival achieved at a great cost. Although they escape physically, they are emotionally marked by the loss of Russell, their neighbors, and their home. The implication is that the outbreak may have been contained in this region, but the existence of such a weapon and the willingness to use extreme measures raise questions about future risks. The final image is one of destruction and silence as Ogden Marsh is erased from existence, leaving only survivors who know the truth of what really happened. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.